What's up? Today, I finally got my GPD Win Max in the mail. I'm going to be doing an unboxing and first impressions. So let's get into it. Let's start with the unboxing. Top part just slides off. There's some padding in here. Nice gold lettering on the top. And here's the inside. Got this little cover. And there's the GPD Win Max itself. A little pull tab to get it up. Set that aside for now. Here's the instruction booklet. And this is probably the charging cables. The USB-C charging brick. Fast charger. And here is a USB-C to USB-C. And that's all that was in this box. Looks like there's nothing else in here. And now back to the Max itself. It's pretty heavy. Feels pretty nice. Here's the front of it. It's got the microphone and headphone jack, Ethernet port, SD card slot. The back has the triggers and bumpers, HDMI, 2 USB 3.0, a Thunderbolt port, and 1 USB-C port. And then this side has the controller switch to switch it from mouse mode to controller mode. The back has this big grate for intaking air, has these rubber feet and speakers on the bottom. And here's the inside. Keyboard and the controller. Got dual analog sticks, D-pad, face buttons, and a touchpad. And a full keyboard. It did take a while to turn on, but once it turned on, every other time I would restart it, it would start up a lot quicker. Just make sure you don't make the same mistake as me and choose the wrong language in the beginning, otherwise you'll have to reset the whole thing and start it over. Now I'm going to go over some of the first impressions I have about it. So far, the touchpad seems pretty nice. It's a little small, but it's a sacrifice you kind of have to make. It works really well for its size. Tap to click works well, and it also clicks in. Now the keyboard definitely is going to take some getting used to. It is a really weird layout, and it makes it a little hard to type, but you can get used to it after a while. Just have to find the placement of all the weird keys. As for the actual feel of the keyboard, it feels nice. It's a chiclet style keyboard, just like any other laptop really. And the keyboard is backlit. The light is not super bright, but it's definitely usable when it's dark enough. That's really all you need it for, so it's fine with me. Would have been nice to have it a little brighter, but it does the job. The hinge on the screen for the Max has a lot of tension to it, so you can't open it with one hand, but that's kind of a good thing, because that way you know it won't pop open in your bag or something. And now onto the controller. The face buttons and D-pad feel very similar to the Vita buttons, or just Joy-Cons for the Nintendo Switch. They're very clicky, but you know when you're pressing them, so it's not too bad. D-pad has a nice pivot point, so you can't push all of the directions at once. I would say the big downside is probably the analog sticks. They feel very similar to the Vitas, but there's no grip on the top of them, so it makes them kind of slippery, and it's kind of weird the way they're offset, but you could get used to that. It's just the top of them, it doesn't have a lot of grip to it. The Max itself is kind of heavy, and it is kind of hard to play for a long period of time. You kind of have to grip it so that 2 of your fingers are under the rubber pads on the bottom, so you have some sort of grip to hold it up. I found myself laying down slightly and just resting it on my stomach to prop it up, make it easier to play for longer periods of time. Now I'm just going to compare it to a few things so you get a good feel for the size of it. Because honestly, I thought it was going to be a little smaller than it is. First is the Nintendo Switch. And they're actually very similar to being the same size, at least of how much of a footprint it takes up. But the Switch is a lot thinner. The Switch is also a lot lighter, making it easier to play in handheld. It's a little more comfortable to hold, but not by much. So everything is accessible when playing it in handheld. You can reach pretty much every key on the keyboard, trackpad. They did a good job with the design. Next up to compare it with is the regular GPD Win. This was their first handheld computer that they came out with. And you can really tell the size difference here. It is tiny compared to the Max. It's just about half of the size. And then here's the RG350M, and it's about the same size as the regular GPD Win. It's about half of the size of the Max. The new 3DS XL, this is a little bigger than the other two, so it's a little more than half of the size of the Max. And here you can see the difference in thicknesses between the devices. It's almost the same thickness as the other three. And then the last thing I'm going to compare it to is this HP 2-in-1 Chromebook. I think it's about a 13-inch, and as you can see, it's quite a bit bigger than the Win Max. The Max seems to be about half the size of this, so it is a little thicker than the Chromebook, but not by much. So it's definitely a little more portable, and it has built-in controllers. Now for some gameplay and how it performs while running games. This is Risk of Rain 2. It's a randomly generated third-person shooter where you just explore levels and fight bosses. And it runs this really well. I originally turned down the settings because I didn't think it was going to be able to run it as well as it does, but then I turned almost all of the settings back up, and it still runs it at 60 FPS. There are a few times where it dips down during like big boss battles, but besides for that, from everything that I've played, it runs it at 60. I'm just going to let this play out a little until the boss battle, so you can get a good feel for the performance it has. This next game is Planetary Annihilation Titans, and it's a fairly simplistic RTS game. Initially it was running this like above 100 FPS, but as it went on into late game, the FPS dropped down to about 40, and that's where it stayed. I don't think it went underneath 40 FPS, so it ran it pretty well. And I'm going to let this play out for a bit so you can see the performance and gameplay of this. And then the last game I'm going to test in this video is the Halo Master Chief Collection. The only two games I played from the collection were Halo Reach and Halo 2, and they both seem to run at 60 FPS majority of the time. I rarely saw it dip below 60. It was a very good experience. Felt kind of crazy playing these on a handheld, almost like Microsoft has their own handheld now. Let me know if there's any other games you want me to test in the future. I haven't really tested any modern high-end games, see if it can run them at all. If you have any suggestions, leave them down in the comments. And I'm just going to let this play out for a bit until the outro.
Don't want to know.
So that was my first impression on the GPD Win Max. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Give a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to stick around for more tech and gaming videos. Thanks for watching.
I think a plane got shot down and that was all that was left. Like,
Oh my god, there's so many people pushing
you'd
up.
be surprised though. I ran down the middle of the road and I didn't get shot. Like, I think if you're not shooting, you're a much less appealing target.
Doing it! Oh no! Somebody already killed him! I don't know how he didn't die.